Welcome back to Redefine Parenting with your host, Veenu Keller. We want to welcome you to Spanglish World Network and H.E.R Network on Zingo TV, channels 250 and 251. Zingo TV is a free app that can be downloaded on iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire and Fire Sticks, Roku and Roku Sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Redefine Parenting is a revolutionary approach to nurturing our children. Veenu will bring you live experts, transformative insights, and a fresh perspective, all aimed at helping families worldwide truly understand their children. Together, let's give them a childhood they won't have to heal from. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Redefine Parenting. Today, I have this amazing guest who I was connected to from another friend, and we just chatted, and I swear we could have just went on and on and on with experiences and synergy and everything else. And, you know, she has this program launch, I think it's like Parent Launchpad or something like that, but we were just talking. It's like, you know, throw your kids from the nest. I'm like, oh, I love that. I love that. Let's use that as our title. And so, you know, Debra has so many accomplishments, and she's here today to just kind of share some of her knowledge and our wisdom with all of our listeners across the world. Debra, thank you so much for taking your time to be here.
Thank you for having me. This is so fun because it's like an extension of our conversation the other day. So I really am very grateful to be on with you. You're wonderful.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And, you know, what I love about our show is that we are worldwide. We have over 4 million viewers that watch the show in all different countries. And I just love that, you know, parenting is a universal language. It doesn't matter what part of the world we're in. We have parents everywhere. And that is why I feel I want to bring people like you on our show, because I want to help people expand their consciousness of what parenting is and how we redefine that. How do we break that generational cycle of how we were raised, and the influences and the values and the beliefs that were installed in us may not be exactly what we need to do anymore. Maybe we need to open our minds to something different of how we parent. And bringing guests like you, I feel like it brings it to the consciousness of there's different ways that we need to be. And, you know, I always tell parents, you know, being a mom of 6, I think of how do I know I'm a successful parent is, are they happy? Are they healthy? And are they independent? Those are 3 milestones I hope that I can install in all my children. And independence means that they don't need to be so independent where they need me to do everything for them, that they don't need to live in my house. They don't need me to pay their bills. And, you know, and you and I were having that discussion. And I love, like, how do we throw them from the nest? When are they ready to just fly the coop?
Yeah. You know, I love what you just said, that it's a universal language, yet it comes with no playbook. So therein lies the situation that we're all going through as parents, is that, and you've got 6. So as you were describing, you've got a young one, you've got a 16-year-old, you know, all different ages. And right when you think you got it, overnight, they're a different person. And then you're going, wait, what page, where's the playbook? And to your point too, Veenu, is that it's changed. You know, the way that we were parented is where maybe some people have the ability to make a conscious effort to say, I'm not going to be that kind of parent. And even though they weren't modeled that, they were able to somehow do it. But others don't. And they go on with that, what you were just saying, the intergenerational ways that we were brought up. And I have to say, and this is just my own opinion, I don't know if the 4 million people you have watching will agree with this, but I believe, and I'm guilty of it, that our parenting, maybe you're changing it, will go down as the worst, because we were trying to like pave the road to Oz. And if there was a pothole or there was a little speed bump, we were going to pave it over with gold. We were there before they even saw the pothole. And now in my practice of your career design lab, where I architect, design, and curate young adults' careers, I spend 99% of my time not trying to find them the career, but going over the feeling of not good enough, imposter syndrome, lost. And I know, and we can't blame the parents completely because obviously we can't. It's everybody has their own agency. But there was a very big disconnect for our kids, and there's always time to repair because there's neuroplasticity in the brain. But like you said, I love your thing is like, maybe we can raise children that won't have all the people that I see. And they're perfectly normal, like I want to say well-adjusted, out in the world, but internally they're struggling.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you say, that we are going to have the generation that had the worst parenting, because here's what we did. It's like, I didn't like what my parents did. So either you're going to fall suit to that because that's how you defined what love was, because, we were raised that love is unconditional, but yet we had so many conditions in our minds that we had to meet in order to get the love and approval from our parents. Or we went to the other part of the spectrum where we're going to, like you said, make it gold, like a pothole. Wait, don't move. Let me fix that pothole so you can go over it. And I love that metaphor because that's literally what we did. And the other thing is, we were the generation that raised our kids through our baggage of not feeling enough, not knowing if we're good enough, not knowing if we're loved, looking for relationships to heal those wounds. And, and it's like, what did we create? And so because I have a 30-year-old and a 25-year-old, I get to firsthand see what I didn't know. I did the best that I could with what I knew then.
Right.
But now I know better. I do better. And I have issues with my twins now that are going to be 12 where we constantly battle. And that's when I'm like, okay, how do I take a step back? How do I learn from the dialogue now? Because my older boys are like, we would never have talked to you that way. And I said, because you weren't allowed to. And now I have given my kids the voice to say, I don't feel like you're hearing me, Mom. I don't feel like you're understanding me. And yeah, we're working on the tonality of that. But the truth is, I was just talking to my best friend. I said, why is it okay if I say, well, why did you do that? And I expect an answer from them. But as soon as they say, well, why did you do that? I'm like, wait, what's your tone with me?
Yeah.
It's we're replicating in our children now, but they also have, the kids now have a opportunity that we say, okay, we need to install their self-worth. We need to know that they're worth stating their opinion, that kids need to be heard and seen, right? Because we were like, we don't want to see you. We don't want to hear you in my generation.
Right. But yet here's my thoughts on that, is that if I was to do it over again, to be honest with you, I am able to do it now in my practice, which just feels like so good, is that I would love to see, as parents, right? You get married and it's kind of like, what are your values, soon to be husband or husband? What are your values? What do you stand for? And from that, we build, it's a Gottman statement of, which is the largest institute of relationships, is we build our relationship house. So here's how we're building the walls. Here's how we're going to build the room. This is how we're going to greet each other. This is the way we want our house to feel like. These are the values we want to bring into our home. So now you have a child and you exemplify those values. Now, like what you're saying with your twins, maybe they have different values, but maybe asking, I'm just curious, what are you standing for right now? What are your beliefs? How does that not working for you? How, Daddy and I, we believe in this, but I'm so curious, what do you believe in?
Correct.
So now you got like a couple new rooms with their beliefs, but all within that thing of the house. Do you know what I mean? And to your point about being seen and heard, I do love that. I know that's a thing we use, but then I can't help, there is a realism to me that what happens when you go out in the world, and this is what's happening with a lot of people I put in careers or who are in careers. The boss ain't going to come around and going, how are you feeling today, Veenu? Are you enjoying the work you're doing? Like, there's still a reality out there. So that's when I say pushing out of the nest. What I just mean by that is sometimes they're going to fall. Sometimes they're going to break their neck. Sometimes, metaphorically, but we've got to let them, because that's the only way they're going to know how to flap their own wings.
100%. And going back to what you were saying, I also think it's giving them, when we're asking them, here's what mom and dad believe. what are your beliefs around it? It's
Yeah.
giving them permission to develop their own beliefs. Because when we were growing up, we didn't have that. It's this is our values. This is what we believe. This is what you're going to do. I remember getting the tar beaten out of me because I dared to go to vacation Bible school with the kids on my street because all the kids were going. And my mom's like, no, you will learn our beliefs of Sikhism. Like, that's our family religion. You will learn it. And I literally, back then we got spanked. I got spanked for disobeying my mom to create and see what else is out there to create my own beliefs.
Yeah.
And now, I want my kids, I allow them to know that we have a belief in what we call God. That's our belief. But you can believe anything. My daughter right now thinks she's Christian, and we're like, great. What does that mean to you? How does that help you be closer to the God that you believe in or whatever? And we have these open discussions because my husband and I, and here's what I got the other day is like when people are like, well, what is it that you really do? I said, I am here to break the generational cycle. That is my job. That's my mission on this earth. And by doing so, even that I have the back and forth, and you're right. No one's going to ask my daughter, so you didn't like that? What can I do for you to like that? I get that. And I'm also building up that resilience in her because at the same time I'm doing that, I'm like, and here's the boundaries that we have set for you.
Yeah.
How are you going to live within this boundaries? Because you have to know when you get out in this real world, there are boundaries.
Yeah.
How are you going to function with them if you don't even know that there's a structure to you and there's a structure in living in this world?
Yeah, exactly. There's paradigms and prototypes of parents. And there's like the dutiful adult parent, I'm reading this, well, it's like you're a guilty parent, you're the victim parent. There's prototypes. And then what happens when you act in that manner? Your child becomes either the dutiful adult parent, and this goes with the withdrawal adult, like they're just like beeline out of there, the starving adult child who just wants like all the attention. And there's another one, and I can't say what it is, but it's interesting. The way that we are with our kids is the prototype that they become. And that's why often, like what you're experiencing maybe now with your 12-year-olds, and that's just, a growing up thing too, but that the dynamics of the prototypes in the room get like very aggravated. And it's so important to be regulated. And you're obviously smart enough to see that dynamic and be able to have the guardrails up, but oftentimes as we've been parenting, we never had guardrails up. I mean, you either like get very afraid of the feelings of your child and therefore retreat. There's so many dynamics that at this juncture, it's really up to us to be the leader, even more than I think of a husband personally, but as a mom, is to be the leader of ourselves and from that space lead.
I love that. I love that. And like I said, like with my older boys, like I literally raised my boys with the baggage of not being good enough, not feeling my self-worth, self-love. And so how could I role model, like you're saying, lead them as a single mom, to lead them to know that they were enough, to know that they had self-love, to know that their happiness is not dependent on someone else. It's dependent on what they choose to tolerate, not deserve. And they're learning that now, but I was not the role model for that at that time because of the generation we grew up in. That just wasn't a role model for us. I even see it in my own mom. Like I still see that she's that martyr. Like that's how she gets the significance. It's like, I got to take it all on myself and then complain that nobody's here to help me. Like I still see it. And it's funny because I went down that track and my older boys still have a hard time that like, I'm not guilt tripping you into doing what I want anymore. Like that was how I am, but I've changed. I'm just expressing and owning the feelings I have because of the circumstances. I'm not blaming you because it's my feelings. I'm going to take responsibility. And my oldest son is just like, no, you still want to guilt trip us. And I'm like, I'm going to let you sit with that because you're going to have your own experience and understanding that having an adult conversation where one person is like, this is how I feel. from this situation is different from this is how I feel, so you should change your behavior because of it.
Yeah.
And that is why my husband and I have allowed dialogue now, because I want my kids to know that they're worth having the conversation to say, hey, that hurt my feelings when you said it that way. And for me to say, I didn't know I said it that way. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Let me try it again.
Yeah.
Because that's not my intention.
Yeah. You know what else? I love that. I love that. Also, there's so many ways of conversing now. This is part of the playbook, right? Is having the language of which to communicate now with this generation. Because this generation, the way they've been brought up, the way their brains are wired from the phones, from all that, needs a different language. So still we're sitting with, maybe a generation back, but their brains are wired very differently. And one of the things that I think works really well is having curiosity.
Yes.
And just, it may be like over freaking used, and a little maybe sounding condescending in the beginning, but it allows for their voice without sometimes the attitude. Like, I'm just curious, Susie, why are you feeling that way? I really want to know. Can you tell me?
Yeah, I light up when you say that because my regular listeners know one of my hashtags is curious, not critical.
Yeah.
When we come, like you said, with the curiosity of a mind, you're not telling your kid you're wrong for feeling that way. You're telling them, like, help me understand the story you're creating of that definition of what you have created in this conversation before I just jump on you and say, no, you're wrong. I need to guide you. I need to, because here's the truth and the way I see it. I'm not a doctor. I'm not licensed or any of that, but I'm just going to say how I feel raising kids and working with families for over 2 generations is we have come from a time when our parents dictated to us how life is going to be. We are now in a time where we're not dictators, we're guiders, we're the leaders. And I love that you said that. Like, the moms take on the leadership role of how do we want to guide our kids into the future. And, if somebody would have told me, 30 years ago, we were going to live in a time where what we saw in the Jetsons was going to become our reality, I would have laughed. Cell phones that there's not a cord attached. I mean, I remember having cordless phones, but you can only go 5 feet. Once you're off your property, the phone went dead.
Yeah.
But you could drive and talk to you. Can face you. I could see you and talk to you like on the Jetsons. Like, there would be no way I could imagine that. Where are we going to be even 10 years from now with all the technology and AI?
Yeah.
And so to be able to say, I'm going to dictate to you what I think is safety going to be for you, I will fail at that.
Mm-hmm.
I will fail.
Mm-hmm.
But what I can do is guide them with the best skills and values that I can offer them. And they have to take all that and choose what to do with it.
Yeah. I love what you just said, because I had a client a couple months ago, and the mom called me, which moms often do because, they're paying for it and they've heard about me or what have you. And the way she was describing her son, I thought, oh, she's going to say he like graduated from college. I go, so how old is your son? And she goes, 32. Yeah, I said that, but I was on the phone. So and I was like, I kind of went like that. And I was like, okay, well, whatever. So I started working with the young man, and he was about to get married, and he was looking for a new job. He had been in a certain career, whatever. So we're working on it, and he had a little bit of agency, you know what I mean, about himself. And what I was teaching him was really helpful. However, every day the mom would text me, did you show him how to use LinkedIn? Did you talk about this? Did you do this? And I'm like, and finally I had to just say to her, Robin, and this was my analogy of pushing out the nest, because I had just learned this, that eagles, when they have their eaglets, and I'm probably not telling the story totally correct, but they have an instinct of when to push the eaglets out of the nest. And some will fly off, some will maybe fall like a couple of leaves down, you know what I mean? But they'll gather themselves up. But you have to have at some point the ability instinctually, and this is if you're not, but if you're deregulated and you're the parent that I just described, the guilty parent, the worried parent, the this parent, that's where you're going to parent from. And then you're going to have a 32-year-old who's about to get married and doesn't have any agency for themselves.
Mm.
And that to me is the saddest thing. And I had to stop. I didn't stop working. I just said, I have to set a boundary because you're like undoing all the work that I'm trying to do that you've done for 32 years. And I said in the nicest way possible. But I had to kind of shake her up to say, what you are doing is a complete disservice.
Right.
But it's her own, we've got to heal ourselves
100%.
in order to heal this generation. And it's what you're like all about. And I've seen it for myself. And, it's funny about being hit or whatever. And I've never really said this to anybody, but I just realized in my generation, my dad strapped us. Like not a lot, but I mean, it would be the belt. And I would always think to myself, why didn't they just ask me why I left the Girl Scout camp? Because I was like bored. Like, why was it always wait till your dad gets home?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just such a big epiphany for me that I've gone through my whole life wanting to know the who, what, where, why, and how, because uncertainty and ambiguity doesn't sit well with me. I've learned how to now be in that, because if as a parent, you don't like that, you're going to put that on your kids, and your kids are going to go through a lot of uncertain times. Mm-hmm. Their whole life, it's going to be uncertain till it's not. So it was just interesting to me to ponder that was my notion in my head. And that's why it's so important for me to be such a good communicator and help others, because for myself, I just don't like when somebody goes, well, let's go out to dinner. And you go, well, wait a minute, what time and where do you want to meet? I'm also about taking one step and not four. But you know what I mean? It's just, but I have to say to myself, Debra, just relax. You'll find out when it is.
Right.
But it all stemmed, I realized, from that time, that every time not every time, but when I was strapped, it was circumstances that were a reason for it, in my mind anyway.
I love that. And I love that, like, we were able to see like the worried parent, the guilty parent, and all these different archetypes of parenting now. And like, even before that, we were like, be the conscious parent, be the bulldozer parent, be the helicopter parent. It's like, I always say, and this is one of my key phrases, be the parent your child needs you to be in that moment.
Yeah.
If they need a little bit more direction, give them direction. If they need a little bit more, so tell me what this means to you. Be more cautious about what they're going through and their feelings, and allow them to have them. I think that we're in a time that we really need to tune in to what is it, the need of the child. And I work with parents that are doing their kids' homework for them. And I'm like, tell me what the outcome is. And they're like, well, they just need to get it done. And it's just stupid, dumb work that they need to do. And I'm like, so you're doing the stupid, dumb work for them? Yeah. I said, and then they have to take a test on that stupid, dumb work. And honestly, I tell parents, I said, it's not really stupid and dumb. You know what it is? It's repetition, because repetition's the mother skill, right? And so the teachers are giving them repetition to do after school, so they can make sure when they take the test, they're able to test and be able to pass it. And so when your daughter's not getting great grades because she's not passing the test, you got to ask yourself, well, she gets good grades on her schoolwork. No, you get good grades on her schoolwork. Exactly. And it's like, what I feel is that parents think it's a reflection on them if their kids aren't doing good. And here's what I have to say. I have one twin that, as long as she turns it in and she gets a grade, she don't care what the grade is. She's just glad she turned it in. I got another twin that strives to get an A because it feels good. Because here's the bottom line. My husband and I have not made grades the end all to be all if you're a good person.
Yeah.
For us, it's testing to see, did you understand the material you were tested on? That's it. It doesn't mean you're a good person. It doesn't mean I'm not going to love you. It doesn't mean that you're not allowed to have friends. It means that you need some more help with that foundational work because you couldn't pass the test. That's all it means to us.
Yeah.
And they put the pressure. There's so much pressure on kids now that the word anxiety is, I think, like every kid. My daughter at field day last week, she's like, oh, Mom, I came home. I had a panic attack. And I'm like, what? And she goes, yeah, that's what they said. The school said it was just a panic attack because all this water was coming out of the fire engine. Like they had like the fire engine there with the water. And she goes, and I was getting wet and I couldn't breathe and my heart was racing. And then I started to cry. And I said, did you expect the water to come out so fast? And she goes, I didn't. And I said, it probably didn't feel good. She goes, it didn't. And I said, so could it just be your body went into fight or flight to protect itself? Do we have to call it an anxiety, a panic attack?
Do we have to label
Right.
everything?
So now she has in her mind at 11 years old, I had my first panic attack, which gives her some significance, which gives her an explanation. And here now I'm trying to unwire.
It gives her a story.
Right.
It gives her a story that now, to be honest with you, she's going to have to unpack at some point and realize that's not her story. And I love, love, love what you said. And, Veenu, it's interesting you say that because my whole program of your Career Design Lab is and I just spoke to MBA students at FIU and I had the greatest time. And I couldn't believe people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s were writing me. And like your thing was like a big hug. Because to your point, they've been labeled. It's all, what are you going to do? When you talk about schools and stuff, we grew up, I don't know about you, but nobody's ever asking me, who are you, Debra? It was, where are you going to go to school? Where are you going to go to college? What GPA are you going to get? What extracurriculars are you going to do? You talk about the pressure, the whole like AP things. AP college ready. I probably wasn't even college ready when I was college ready. I was like, what the hell am I doing here? You know what I mean? So that's just a whole fabricated marketing, money making, grabbing bullshit, in my opinion, if I can curse on your program. But I go back to these kids and it's like, who were you in your room when you were lost in time and space and joy and happiness till your mom called you for dinner? Who were you then? Because, we want to bring up kids with all the external labels and stuff to know intrinsically that's where my passion is. That's where my joy was. Maybe it was putting on makeup. Maybe it was playing with dolls. Maybe it was Legos. Because it's so interesting when I ask people what they're doing now or what they want to do, it may be an engineer. But when I ask what they were doing, they're like, I was putting puzzles together.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they didn't even realize that what brought them joy and happiness was what they want their profession to be. And then, of course, others change their mind. But then the point is, it's rewiring those stories to your point that the school told your daughter it was.
Right.
That really upsets me, to be honest with you. And that's the language, right? That needs to go from the bottom up to schools and everything.
Oh, I agree. I totally agree. And again, it's now rewiring that and letting her know that your body has senses. We're sensory. We're a sensory human thing. And sometimes the way we take in information doesn't compute with your mind and your body wants to go into fight or flight. So it's just protecting you. And I said, what happened after that? She goes, well, they pulled me out and I had a moment to just sit there and breathe. And I said, so is it possible your body just wanted to breathe and it didn't know how to do that because it took your breath away? And she was like, oh yeah, maybe. And I said, yeah, maybe. I said, that's all it is. And to your point about when we were kids and we played, because we had nobody telling us how we had to be, we had the freedom
exactly
to have imagination, to pretend to be an astronaut, to pretend to be a bird and what it was like to jump off the wall and fly for a moment. And wonder, I wonder if birds jump and their feet hurt like mine do when I land, and to have the curiosity of experience learning until the streetlights came on or mom called us to come eat. Right. And it's the ability that it's like, I don't think that my mom ever took responsibility if I got an F on a grade. Like, I don't think she ever did. It was like, you must have not studied hard enough. What do you need to do? It was always you. It was never like, oh, I'm a bad parent because you failed that class. It was, the minute I started to not do well in math, algebra, my mom's like, you need to get a tutor. Like, obviously you're failing many, many, tests. You need a tutor. And that was a cue to get me help, not to get her help for me to be a better kid.
Exactly. I always tell this story when I speak about my PR background, having owned a PR firm, is I really credit my parents in that way because I graduated from high school where all my friends were going to go. Yeah, we're going to go to University of Arizona. It was voted like one of the 10 worst schools at that time, like 100 years ago. And I was like, yeah, we're all going to go. And then it was like August and I go, come on, everybody, let's pack up. They're like, well, we're going to USC and UCLA. So they left me in the dust. So I went to USC and then I did a whole PowerPoint presentation of how I needed to come back to LA and I could go to USC too. And I'd be like in a sorority, and I did like a whole PR campaign. So they let me come back. And then I got asked to go to Europe at the time. And I went there and I worked in Paris and Milan and Florence and all these places for like 4 years. And then I come back and I finished at NYU. And years later, when I started my PR firm, it was the time of designer fashion coming into the US marketplace called the bridge wear market. So like a jacket that was $5,000 now would be like $1,500 and people could afford it. And I was able to convince all these designers like Pucci, Escada, Krizia, Kenzo, like all the name brands, Pucci, that I lived in Europe and I know what your fashions are like. And I'm the only PR firm who ever did that. Like, of course, I'd walk in their store, walk right out because I couldn't afford anything. But if my parents ever said, Debra, you've gone to 2 schools now. No, you are not going to Europe. You're going to finish college and you're going to finish the degree that you don't even freaking know what you're fucking studying. You know what I mean? Because you don't have a clue. And I would never have been as successful as I was having every single fashion company in the world doing their PR for them.
Right. And I agree. Like, we have to be able to experience what we do to really get into our true nature and our purpose. That's right. Without all the rules of you can't be that. And I feel that our generation was the independent generation.
100%.
And because of that, we have to see the gifts in that. And yet, when we go into those gifts, I think the way, and again, it's my opinion, we parent the way we did because we miss the nurturing. And so we didn't know how to give our kids the independence with the nurturing. And so we went one way or the other. It was like we went too extreme of this or we went way extreme. Like there was no happy medium. And I remember telling my son, I'm like, you're going to go to college, pick a college. He's like, I'm not going to college. I'm like, oh, yes, you are. I was being my mom. Yes, you're going to go to college. Like everyone in our family goes to college. You're going to go to college. He's like, no, I'm really not. And he didn't go to college. And I said, why didn't you go to college? He's like, because I told you I wasn't. When I was 18, you couldn't tell me what to do anymore.
Yeah.
Guess what? He was right. And you know what? He's happy in his career of being a welder. He went and got his certification in welding. He works for a great company in North Carolina, welding. He's learning that it's hard labor now because it's on his body and he's 30 now. But the truth is that he chose a profession that lit him up.
Exactly.
And who was I to say, no, because that was the person that was raised that way. I wanted to do hair. I love doing hair. To this day, I love doing hair. And my mom says, no, you won't. There's no money in it. Can I tell you how much money great hairdressers make? Oh. And I had a gift at it. Like I could look at a hairstyle. Like my mom would come home from the hairstylist and a week later, she's like, I don't know how I'm going to do that. I'm like, oh, I'll show you. Take the roller brush. You do this. She goes, oh my gosh, it's just like I got out of the salon and I'm here like 13 years old doing it. She goes, you're so good. And I'm like, I know. And this is what, and I made the mistake of saying, this is what I want to do. And she's like, no, there's no money. And so I got this like new definition. There's no money in it. Creativity is not going to make you money. And so I had this belief for so long that I wasn't creative. That's what happened.
Wow. When you just talked about that story, you were lit up. Like I could totally see the flow. You were there. You were 13 doing a beautiful hairstyle on your mom. Like I could just see it, feel it. It was beautiful.
And I do say, when I make my first million, I said, I'm going back to hair school. People are like, well, why would you? You see, because it's a passion inside of me. I may not do it as a career or anything, but it's something that I enjoy. I love watching when my hair gets cut. I love watching when it gets colored. Just it's an art.
100%.
It is an art.
Veenu, it's so funny you're saying that because actually 2 things come to mind. I have a friend, a really great friend, And her father was an artist, and she said she wanted to be a singer. And her father said the same thing. You don't make money being an artist. Well, she wanted to prove him wrong. And within 6 months, she got into a girl band that went to the #1 song that beat out Whitney Houston. I forgot what the girl band is, but it was like one of those, like the Spice Girls. It was almost like a Spice Girls thing. And it's just the story. That's why it is so important for me when I work with young people now, that it's like, let's debunk the story that you were told and create the story that you want, because our brains do have the ability, and I call it magic, to tap into the abundance of the universe. That's where all the great things happen for your kids. And let that, like me going to Europe, it just happened that I knew this guy that said, do you want to work for Roberto Cavalli? You know, and I mean, all the greatest stories that I tell when I speak at colleges and stuff, I realized one day, I go, oh my God, all of that happened serendipitously. It did not happen because I went to college for 4 years. It did not happen because of the classes I took. It didn't happen in that linear line. The best things in life are not linear. And what I want to teach kids, as you are, is at a young age that look to the abundance, look to the magic in life. How can every day can you say something to the point where you can't make this shit up? Right. That's where people get lit up, because you got the phone call because the person you met on the train station is offering you, you know, whatever. It is so magical. It's unbelievable. And I would love kids to feel that, know that they can get that from us, because we believe in it, instead of like exactly what you're saying.
Well, it's so funny you said that, because my daughter, the twin, she's like, I want to be a singer. My son, her twin, says, I want to be a professional soccer player. I want to play in the World Cup. So she has singing lessons from Sam Smith's singing coach, by the way, in the UK. She's been doing it for 3 years. And I hear her practicing all the time, and how much he has developed her voice, because she's going to be 12 and she's been doing this since she was 9. And she's like, I'm going to be on The Voice. Now she wants to be on America's Got Talent. I don't care, because as long as that's her dream, I'm going to do what I can to support it. My son, I signed him up for soccer camps. Right now he's trying out for his soccer league. Like, we get him extra soccer training during the week outside of practice. You know, we buy him the soccer goals he needs. And somebody says, well, you know, you put so much money into it. What if they choose not to do it? And I said, then we stop putting money into it. I said, but I don't want my kids to not experience what they can dream at a young age in their innocence of knowing. I'm not going to be the one to say you can't have it. Right. I'm going to say, go get it. And if I can help you to master these skills that you're going to need to get that dream, I'm going to do the best I can with what we have to help you master that. And what you're going to see is, how bad do you want it? Because are you doing it outside the coaching, outside the lessons? Because you got to do your part too. And, you know, my daughter used to cheerlead. She used to play soccer. She used to do dance. And she's like, I don't want to do it anymore. And I'm like, okay. She goes, are you disappointed that you put all this money into it all this time? And I said, did you enjoy it? She goes, I did, but I don't anymore. And I said, then I'm just grateful I'm not going to put more money into something that you don't enjoy doing. You know, because I'm going to tell you, in our age, like, I didn't grow up with a lot of money. I heard, I can't afford it. I can't afford it. I can't afford it. That's what I heard my whole life growing up. So I knew I was going to be the opposite for my kids. You want to do, and I even did this with my boys. Like, they wanted to play soccer, I put them in soccer, you know, and that is what I believe, is that we have the opportunity as parents to allow our kids to dream big and know it's possible.
100%. Yep.
And I don't want to be a naysayer for my kid, because there's enough out there.
Yep.
I want to be their raving fan.
Yep.
And if I see a gift in them that they don't want to explore anymore, then why am I going to push it?
Yeah. That's exactly right. That's exactly, and that it, you know, that's the thing. That's where schools, I think, falter as well. I have a big thing with colleges and universities and the prices and the return on that investment, which is like zero. But only like a school like Northeastern, where it allows you to explore. But this concept that you got to figure out what you want to do by your sophomore year and stick to it, else you're going to lose the credits. Your thinking and my thinking, that should be explored throughout college. That's their time to figure out who they are, what they want to be, what their interests are. And if more schools were like that and help facilitate, like you do with your kids, from a internship thing and whatever, schools are going to have to align themselves with different industries, because how else are these kids going to get jobs, to be honest with you?
Right.
So I agree. I think by trying all those things, and it's interesting you said, Veenu, because when I help people to craft their story, a lot of kids will go, well, this is nothing, but I was like on the crew team, or like you say, I danced or I sung. And I'm like, no, that's the stuff you want to talk about. That's why you're entering the music business, or that's why you want to be a sports analyst or whatever. They don't realize that all of their passions need to be threaded into what they want to do now.
Right.
You dismiss it like, oh, well, I did that when I was in 5th grade. Does that count? Yeah, it counts.
And
Because
I think that comes from parents celebrating the gifts that our kids have. And, in my book, Teach Your Children That They're Enough, it's my free ebook. And chapter 3 is about celebrating.
Yeah.
It's celebrate, find something to celebrate every day with your kids. Yeah. Something, anything. Celebrate that they got up today and they weren't tired. Celebrate that they actually ate breakfast today, because every day they don't want to eat breakfast and today they did. Celebrate that, they got their test back and they did better than they thought they would. Celebrate something, because if we can teach our kids to celebrate every single day, when they're an adult, they're going to wake up celebrating something every day. And they're going to see their own greatness. And that's really what it is. Like when people say, well, what's your secret sauce to being the parent-child whisperer? I help kids to have a voice to see their own greatness.
Yeah.
Not because it's dictated, not because they had to earn it, just because they did it and they didn't know how to celebrate. I celebrate with them.
Yeah. And celebrations and wins really are a biohack anyway. It really does. By celebrating and writing your wins or writing in a grateful journal, it's scientifically proven to rewire your brain. And in order for us to create the life that we want, those things are the ingredients to creating that.
100%.
So kudos to you, because, and then, I get them at 20, 30, 40, 50 and teaching that, because they didn't learn it. And
right.
it's a freaking absolute game changer.
So let's just switch roles a little bit. I would like to hear more about your Creative Academy, because you're dealing with the adult kids, right? You're dealing with our adult kids now. A lot of this show is about younger kids. And I think that we've given a lot of greatness for our listeners today of like, if you know better, you can do better.
Yeah.
And I always say, I'm not here to say you're doing it right or wrong, because there is no right or wrong. You're doing the best that you can with what you know. But the more you know, the more you can do. The better you know, the better you can do. So let's just, because I've never had a guest that we really get to talk about the adult kids. So what is your Creator Academy about? Like, what are you doing with these kids, and how are, what are they doing in the world through your academy?
Yeah, well, it's a company. It's really my firm, and it's called Your Career Design Lab. And as I said, I architect, design, and curate young adults' careers. And it doesn't mean I do it for them. What I say is, come to me, let's do a new blueprint. Let's roll it out. And now you get to design your life. And it's a lot of rewiring. So I start with what I call the to-do list. Remember, like an artist, like, oh, I could have had a V8. Like, I should have thought of that. And I have prompts similar to what we're talking about. What were you doing in your room? What brought you joy and happiness? And I have to tell you that I get like tears up the wazoo on that, because they forgot about being lit up. They forgot about everything. And to your point, and I love that, if every day these kids that I get, we're doing wins and celebrations, they wouldn't come to me, to be honest with you, so down and out and, oh my God, I can't get a job, I got fired, or like whatever. Like I'm working with a young man right now from privilege, and he's started a pizza company, like a pizza store, not a company, but a store, because during COVID, he decided to see YouTubes and make like incredible pizzas. And he thought it was really great. All of his friends thought it was great. So he thought he should open up a store. But while I was working with him the other day, one of his manager people said, "Oh, we're out of lettuce." And like your daughter who had a panic attack, I saw this young man have a panic attack. And I had to say to him, "Josh, you're an entrepreneur. This is what comes with the territory.
So breathe.
You'll get your lettuce." Do you know what I mean? Doesn't make you a bad person. But you know what? He talked about his dad and how it was never good enough. And his dad had certain rules and all of that kind of stuff. So I said, we got to rewire that. You didn't open the store for your dad. You got to get that voice out of your head now and replace it with your voice so you can run it the way that you want. And you've got some great ideas. So we do the to-do list. And the to-do list is like really laying the foundation, like I was talking about, for your relationship house to yourself. Then I go through the 40 proverbial questions that every potential employer will ask you. Tell me a little bit about yourself. And most of the kids go, "I graduated from U of Penn. I have a 4.0. I was the sororities." And I'm like, stop, because you're boring me. You know what I mean? And then we go back to, what were you doing as a kid? And then it's so interesting to see the more interesting thing. Like I have this kid who was a sales girl. She goes, she really wanted to be in sales. So I just felt there was something in her background. She goes, "Well, I don't know if this is anything, Debra, but when I was 5 years old, my mom made me salami sandwiches and I hated them. And I wanted to buy food in the cafeteria and my mom wouldn't let me buy food in the cafeteria." There you go, right? You can't eat that food. So she decided to sell each slice of the salami and say to her little friends in kindergarten, by the way, "Too bad you have to eat pizza and hot dogs and hamburgers. I get to eat salami from Italy." And she'd act it out. They were freaking lined up with $5 bills that one day her mom opened up her Door Explorer backpack and $20 bills fell out. And she said, "Sophia, fess up. Like, what is going on here?" I think her mom thought she was like a drug dealer, but she couldn't be because she was 5. And she had to fess up that, "You don't let me buy," here it goes, "food in the cafeteria." So I sold each slice for $5. Every job we set up for her, when they asked, "Tell me a little bit about yourself, Sophia," she goes, "Well, I've always felt like I've been in sales." And she told that story. She was hired on the spot at every job that she went to.
I love that. So it sounds like your business helps young adults find their purpose.
Correct. And put it to their passion. Find their passion and put it to their purpose.
Right. And it's so funny because it wasn't long ago that I recognized that I'm a serial entrepreneur starting at 12 years old. Because when my 10, when my mom said, "I can't afford for you to go to 5th grade camp. And while you're at it, I'm not going to afford your 8th grade Catalina trip or your Disneyland trip because I don't have the money. You better figure it out." Bet your bottom that I went door to door selling magazines and everything my school allowed me to do. I raised enough money in 5th grade to pay for my 8th grade trips through getting sponsors and selling magazines. And I learned how to create my own money. When my best friend and I were just talking about it today, how we would go and wash cars and pull weeds for money because our parents wouldn't let us have money for the candy store. So we would always go do it. I raised the most money for the March of Dimes in my area at the age of 13. And I didn't even know what I was raising money for. It's just, I wanted all the prizes. I wanted the keyboard. I wanted the shoes. I was going to raise this money because of the prizes. And I realized that when you want something bad enough, you're going to figure it out.
That's right.
And I did not realize that was a pattern that I inherited from myself, because every time my mom said you couldn't afford it, I took that as a wound instead of a gift.
Yeah.
Because what if she could afford it? I would never have had these skills that I was able to create.
That's right. That's so funny you say that, because when we moved to Short Hills, New Jersey for like 4 years because my husband's family wasn't doing well, whatever. And to be honest with you, I realized I'm not a suburbia girl. I am city all the way. So basically I wanted to shoot myself every day. Like I'm going to kill myself here. I'm so freaking bored. So I went out and I started a company called Daycation Today, for the moms, because I saw in suburbia, we drop our kids off at school. This is when they were younger, go to Soul Cycle, go to the market, go to the cleaners, clean the house, and then you had to pick them up. Well, that's not the life I wanted to live personally. So I went out to all the surrounding towns and I asked every business, nail, yoga, meditation, museums, you name it. I go, what is your downtime? They go, oh, between 12 and 2. I go, perfect. I'm going to bring 10 moms to you. And I started Daycation Today. It was a day in a month that you could have a me day. And do you know that people go, I've never been to Morristown. I'm like, oh my God, it's 20 minutes outside of this freaking town. Are you kidding me?
Right?
You've never been outside your town?
Right.
So I was like, and then people wanted to franchise it like in Long Island and upstate New York. And I just didn't want to like do that. But it was for my own sense of
Sanity.
Sanity. I had to find the people that were going to entertain me and do something. And I thought other people would want to do it. And I had like millions of members and it was incredible. It was a membership, but then every month when you got the thing, like, here's Veenu, what you get to do this month, you'd call your girlfriends, let's go do this, this looks fun, whatever, and still be in time to pick up your kids.
I love it.
I agree with you.
What that does is turn our victimhood of like, oh, poor me, to, oh, wow, yay, because look at the skills I got because of that, right? It's like blame effectively. I love that. So we're done. Like, this has been so great. So how could our viewers find you? Like, if they have these young adults that need your program, because God knows this is what we created.
Exactly.
How do they find you, Debra?
Sure. Well, the best way is through my website, which is www.yourcareerdesignlab.com. They can find me on Facebook at either Debra Olshan Cooper or Your Career Design Lab, LinkedIn Your Career Design Lab or Debra Olshan Cooper, YouTube Your Career Design Lab.
There you go.
And I actually have a lot of things on the Passionate Professional podcast that I had with all professionals, so people could see, wow, I wanted to do that. How did they do it? And the magic that happened. So I've got a lot free ebooks and different things people can go for. Beautiful, beautiful. Debra, thank you so much for being here. This has been a beautiful conversation. Remember, you can find me on VeenuInspires.com or Veenu Inspires on all social media. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
On another episode of Redefine Parenting with Veenu Keller. Follow her on Instagram at Veenu Inspires. To learn more about Veenu, as well as download her free ebook now, go to www.VeenuInspires.com. This show can also be heard on Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all your news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it.